All right, so you want the inside scoop on Marksans Pharma,
Let's do it.
their performance, industry outlook, future plans.
We'll unpack it all.
We'll equip you with all the key insights, really get into some intriguing details.
Sounds good.
To help us navigate the financial maze, we have a true expert in the house.
Glad to be here.
They eat, sleep, and breathe financial analysis, particularly in the world of pharmaceuticals.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Fantastic. Before we jump in, a little roadmap of where we're headed. We'll explore the overall industry landscape.
The lay of the land.
Then into Marksans Pharma's specific business model, how they actually make money.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of their financials. The profit and loss statement, balance sheet, cash flow, those all-important ratios.
Can't forget those.
We'll then shift gears to the people at the helm, the management team, and key stakeholders.
The faces behind the figures.
Of course, no business without risks, so we'll examine those.
Right. Always important.
And finally, we'll wrap things up with Marksans Pharma's outlook on the future.
Their guidance and strategies for continued success.
Marksans Pharma's mission statement, enabling a healthier future globally.
A bold statement.
They specialize in both over-the-counter and prescription drugs,
A wide reach.
focusing on highly regulated markets like the US, the UK, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand.
Some of the strictest in the world.
That commitment to meeting those stringent quality and safety standards.
Absolutely. Operating in these markets requires a high level of compliance, a real testament to their commitment to quality.
Zooming out to the global pharmaceutical industry.
The big picture.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride lately. This industry seems to be a resilient one.
It is. In 2023, despite global challenges, the pharmaceutical industry saw a healthy growth rate of 3.2%, and this upward trend is projected to continue.
Let's break that down, starting with the US, a pharmaceutical giant.
U.S. pharma market reached an impressive, $574.37 billion in fiscal year 23, bouncing back to pre-pandemic levels.
Strong recovery. And what about the growth projections? What's driving that?
Innovation and evolving customer engagement strategies are expected to be key drivers.
It makes you wonder how technology, like AI, might factor in to those customer engagement strategies.
That's the point.
Okay, before we get ahead of ourselves, Australia and New Zealand, what's the market like there?
Australia and New Zealand represent a significant market for Marksans Pharma. The industry there generating about $11.4 billion in revenue in FY23.
That's a decent slice of the pie. What's fueling that growth?
Several factors, including an aging population, the adoption of new technologies,
Keeping up with the times.
and, this is interesting, a rising demand for personalized medicine.
Personalized medicine, that seems to be a growing trend everywhere these days.
It is. This market is projected to grow at a steady 2.60% CAGR from 2024 to 2032.
That's significant, with prescription drugs leading the charge.
It appears so, yes.
So, strategically positioned in markets with solid growth potential. Now, their business model. They describe themselves as a very customer-centric company, emphasizing strong R&D, efficient operations, and a robust product pipeline.
All the buzzwords.
But is there anything that makes Marksans stand out?
What's interesting is how they've translated those principles into tangible outcomes.
Real-world results.
Their efficient operations and robust pipeline have allowed them to achieve notably quick product launches, which is a major advantage.
Speed to market?
Exactly. This, combined with a focus on customer needs, has enabled them to consistently gain market share.
So they're not just talking the talk.
They're walking the walk.
Let's talk about that product portfolio. Over 300 products,
That's impressive.
covering everything from pain management, upper respiratory, to cardiovascular, and even oncology.
They're covering a lot of ground.
And they're not just spreading themselves thin across these areas, delivering high-quality, internationally compliant products.
Particularly important in those tightly regulated markets they're targeting.
It seems like their strategy is to mitigate risk by diversifying, offering a little something for everyone.
It's one way to approach it.
But does that approach make it harder to excel in any one area?
That's a valid question, something to keep in mind as we delve deeper into their financials.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks, the financial performance. Marksans Pharma is boasting some pretty impressive figures for FY24. Their revenue came in at 21,774.07 million Indian rupees, a 17.6% jump from the previous year.
Strong growth.
Their EBITDA is 4,586 million Indian rupees.
That's a 35.1% increase.
Wow. And their profit after tax, or PAP, is 3,148.95 million Indian rupees, reflecting an 18.7% growth.
Those are some serious gains.
I'm eager to break these numbers down further and see what's driving the success.
Let's start with that 17.6% revenue increase. That translates to a jump from 1,852.1 crores in FY23 to 2,177.4 crores in FY24.
So nearly doubling their sales in just 1 year.
That's the kind of growth we're talking about here.
The report also mentions a significant increase in depreciation and amortization expenses.
That increase is primarily attributed to the acquisition of a new facility called Teva Pharm. They invested heavily in expanding their operational capacity.
Short-term costs potentially leading to long-term gains.
It's a common strategy.
Now let's talk about those key financial ratios.
EPS, ROCE, cash flow from operations.
What story is that telling us?
These ratios are crucial for understanding a company's financial health.
How so?
For example, the return on capital employed, or ROCE, tells us how efficiently a company is using its capital to generate profits. Marksans' ROCE is particularly impressive. It's significantly higher than the industry average.
They're using their resources effectively to drive profitability.
It seems so.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, right?
Right?
The report mentions some headwinds.
Right. External factors like the Red Sea crisis led to increased transit times and freight rates, which impacted their cost structure.
Any disruption to global supply chains can have ripple effects.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, they had the added expenses of expanding the Teva Farm unit, including hiring over 200 new employees. It's encouraging to see them creating jobs, but it also adds to their financial burden in the short term.
Absolutely. Expansion comes with costs, and it's important to weigh those against the potential long-term benefits. In Marksans' case, they're clearly betting on the future, investing in growth despite these challenges.
It's a bold move, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the people behind the numbers, the leadership steering this ship. We know Mark Saldana is the chairman and managing director, and Vardman Jain is the executive director.
A wealth of experience between them.
Particularly Jain, with over 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry.
Seasoned veterans.
Looking at the shareholder holding changes, it's clear that the promoters maintain a significant stake in the company.
They're invested in its success, literally and figuratively.
Now let's dive into the management discussion section of the report.
What are their thoughts on the company's performance and where they see things heading?
Exactly.
The management discussion paints a very optimistic picture of the future. They highlight their commitment to investing in growth drivers, specifically mentioning forward integration and R&D as key strategies.
Forward integration, that's an interesting concept. Can you break that down for us? What does it mean in the context of Marksans Pharma?
Forward integration, in this case, means gaining more control over their supply chain and distribution channels.
So they're aiming to streamline their operations, reduce their reliance on third-party vendors, and potentially increase their profit margins.
Exactly. They're looking to take on more steps in the process themselves.
It sounds like a strategic move to increase efficiency and control.
But it also comes with its own set of challenges, of course.
It's a high-risk, high-reward kind of move.
We'll have to see how it plays out.
And speaking of risks, let's not forget about those. Every business faces them, and the pharmaceutical industry is no exception. Marksans acknowledges several key risks in their report. Starting with economic risk. The global economy is constantly in flux. Any instability or downturn could impact their operations.
Particularly given their global footprint, they're exposed to economic fluctuations in various markets.
They've taken steps to mitigate this risk by diversifying their revenue streams across those 50-plus countries they operate in.
Spreading the risk, so to speak.
But even with a global presence, they can't escape the reality of intense competition in the pharmaceutical industry.
It's a crowded market.
How are they addressing that?
They're tackling competition head-on by focusing on 3 key areas: a diverse product portfolio, strong R&D capabilities, and a commitment to quick product launches.
So they're essentially trying to stay one step ahead.
Offering a wide range of solutions, developing innovative products, and getting those products to market quickly.
It's a constant race to stay ahead of the curve, especially when it comes to technology.
Technology is always evolving.
What about the risk of falling behind in the tech game?
Marksans recognizes this risk, and they're addressing it by investing in cutting-edge manufacturing facilities and robust R&D capabilities.
So they're building their own tech infrastructure.
And staying informed about what's out there.
A two-pronged approach to staying relevant. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's touch on another risk they mentioned: regulatory risk.
Ah, yes, a big one for pharmaceutical companies, especially those operating in highly regulated markets.
And we know Marksans has a strong presence in those heavily regulated markets, the US, the UK, Europe.
Right. Any changes in regulations or policies could significantly impact their operations and profitability.
How are they managing this regulatory risk?
They're tackling it head-on by implementing robust compliance programs and proactively engaging with regulatory bodies. They're also actively monitoring regulatory changes and adapting their operations accordingly.
So they're not just playing defense. They're actively engaged in shaping the regulatory landscape.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, from Marksans' impressive financial performance to their strategies for navigating a complex and competitive industry.
A lot to unpack.
But the story doesn't end here. We'll be back to delve deeper into Marksans Pharma's future guidance and strategies for continued success.
There's much more to explore. Welcome back.
All right, let's dissect Marksans' revenue streams a bit further.
Okay.
We touched on their diverse product portfolio, but let's zoom in on their strategic breakdown by therapeutic area.
Yeah.
Gives us a clearer picture of which areas are driving their financial success.
Makes sense.
So what are the top performers?
In FY24, pain management stole the show, raking in a hefty 9,248 million Indian rupees.
Wow. And what else?
Gastrointestinal products followed closely behind, contributing 1,892 million Indian rupees.
Pain management, gastrointestinal issues, pretty widespread, so it makes sense those areas would be major contributors.
It does, yeah.
What other therapeutic areas are playing a significant role?
Anti-infective products came in third, generating 449 million Indian rupees.
Right.
Anti-hair fall products brought in 126 million Indian rupees.
Interesting.
And we can't forget about anti-diabetic medications,
A crucial area these days.
which contributed 435 million Indian rupees.
Right.
Central nervous system medications, CNS, also played a substantial role, generating 1,807 million Indian rupees.
It's fascinating to see how they've strategically positioned themselves across such a diverse range of therapeutic areas.
It is.
But this approach also raises a question. Are they spreading themselves too thin?
That's a valid concern. While diversification can mitigate risk, it also requires careful management.
Right.
Marksans needs to ensure they're allocating resources effectively and maintaining focus on areas with the greatest growth potential.
The balancing act.
It is.
Let's shift gears now and look at their revenue breakdown by delivery system. The split between those over-the-counter OTC products and the prescription or RX products. This gives us insight into how they're catering to different consumer needs and market segments.
In FY24, RX products took the lead, generating a significant 1,514 million Indian rupees in revenue.
So prescription medications are their bread and butter, at least for now.
Seems like it, yeah.
But I'm curious to see how this dynamic might shift in the coming years, especially with the growing emphasis on preventative health and wellness. Could we see a surge in demand for their OTC products as consumers become more proactive about their health?
That's a very insightful observation. The rise of the health-conscious consumer could certainly impact the balance between OTC and RX revenue. It'll be interesting to see how Marksans adapts.
All right, let's move on to the people at the helm, the promoters and management team steering this ship. We know that Mark Saldana is the chairman and managing director, and Vardman Jain is the executive director, both bringing decades of experience to the table.
Seasoned leaders.
But I'm eager to dig a little deeper into their leadership style, how they're guiding the company.
When we examine the shareholder holding changes, it's evident that the promoters have maintained a substantial stake in the company.
So they have skin in the game.
Demonstrates their continued confidence in Marksans' future, suggests a strong alignment between management's interests and those of the shareholders.
Now let's turn our attention to the management discussion section of the report.
Yeah.
This is where we can glean insights into their perspective on the company's performance and their vision for the future.
The management discussion reflects a sense of optimism and ambition. They emphasize their commitment to investing in R&D and forward integration,
Right.
highlighting these as key drivers of future growth. They seem to be taking a long-term view, focusing on building a sustainable business that can weather market fluctuations and emerge stronger.
They're playing the long game.
They are.
But even with a solid strategy, they can't completely eliminate risk. We've already touched on some of the general risks they face, but let's break down some of the specific risks outlined in the report. Economic risk, a major concern for any global business. Marksans is no exception. Geopolitical instability, currency fluctuations, global economic downturns can all impact their bottom line.
For sure.
However, they've taken steps to mitigate this risk by spreading their operations across diverse markets,
Geographic diversification.
acting as a buffer.
Exactly.
But even with a diversified portfolio, they can't entirely escape the realities of intense competition.
Right.
How are they staying ahead of the curve in such a crowded market?
They're tackling competition head-on through a multifaceted approach.
Well-
First, their diverse product portfolio allows them to cater to a wide range of consumer needs,
Right.
reducing their reliance on the success of any single product.
That makes sense.
Second, their robust R&D capabilities enable them to develop and launch new products quickly,
So they're keeping up with innovation.
keeping them at the forefront. And finally, they're committed to maintaining strict compliance with international manufacturing and regulatory standards,
Ensuring high quality.
ensuring that their products meet the highest quality and safety benchmarks.
Sounds like they're covering all their bases, offering a broad range of solutions, staying ahead of the innovation curve, and ensuring they're meeting the highest industry standards.
Seems so.
But even with these strategies in place, they still face the risk of technological disruption.
Uh-huh.
How are they addressing the ever-evolving technological landscape?
Marksans acknowledges the critical role of technology in their future success. They're investing heavily in state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities and cutting-edge R&D capabilities.
Right.
They're also actively monitoring emerging technologies and exploring ways to integrate them into their operations.
So they're not just keeping up, they're actively trying to stay ahead of the tech curve.
It's essential in this industry.
But technology isn't the only challenge they face.
True.
Regulatory risk is another significant factor in the pharmaceutical industry.
Absolutely.
How are they managing this complex and ever-changing landscape?
Marksans operates in some of the most heavily regulated markets in the world.
Right.
So managing regulatory risk is paramount. They've implemented robust compliance programs and maintain open communication with regulatory bodies.
Why?
They're also actively monitoring regulatory changes and adapting their operations accordingly, ensuring they're always operating within the bounds of the law and meeting the latest standards.
It's like playing a constant game of catch-up.
You could say that.
Now let's turn our attention to the future. What guidance and strategies has Marksans outlined for continued growth and expansion?
Their future guidance is rooted in a belief in their core strengths: a strong manufacturing base, a diverse product portfolio, and a strategic focus on regulated markets. They plan to leverage these strengths to fuel further expansion, both geographically and in terms of their product offerings.
So they're building on what they do best.
Exactly.
But what about specific initiatives? Are there any notable projects on the horizon?
They've identified forward integration as a key strategic priority, aiming to gain greater control over their supply chain and distribution channels. This will require significant investment and operational expertise.
It's a bold move.
It is, but it has the potential to streamline their operations, reduce costs, and enhance their competitive advantage.
And of course, we can't forget about R&D, the lifeblood of any pharmaceutical company.
R&D remains at the heart of their growth strategy. They're committed to investing heavily in research and development, ensuring a steady pipeline of innovative products that meet evolving market demands and solidify their position as a leader.
So they're essentially investing in their future,
They are.
developing the next generation of treatments and therapies. It's a long-term vision that requires patience and persistence, but it's also the key to sustainable success in this industry.
Absolutely. Innovation is the lifeblood of the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay, we've explored their financial performance, their strategies for navigating risk, and their vision for the future. But before we wrap up, let's take a step back and consider the bigger picture. Marksans has clearly articulated their commitment to regulated markets.
Yes, they've focused on building a strong presence in regions with stringent regulatory environments.
But what if they decided to expand into emerging markets? Markets with less stringent regulations. What potential challenges and opportunities might they encounter?
That's a thought-provoking question. Expanding into emerging markets could offer significant growth opportunities, but it would also come with its own set of challenges.
Like what?
They'd need to carefully navigate different regulatory landscapes, adapt their operations to local market conditions, and potentially face increased competition from local players. It would be a complex undertaking, but one with the potential for significant rewards if done right.
It's like venturing into uncharted territory. Exciting, but also fraught with uncertainty.
Exactly.
It'll be fascinating to see how they approach such a move.
It would. A lot to consider.
It would be a testament to their adaptability and strategic thinking.
For sure.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring Marksans Pharma from every angle. Their financial performance, their strategic focus, their ambitious plans for the future.
It's been a comprehensive journey. I think we've gained a solid understanding of what makes this company tick.
Now, for our final thoughts,
Okay.
let's leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
I like it.
Marksans is clearly a company on the move,
Definitely.
but their future success hinges on their ability to adapt to a rapidly changing landscape.
So true.
What do you think is the biggest challenge they'll face in the next 5 years? And how do you think they should address it?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Share your thoughts and insights. We'd love to hear from you. It's been quite a journey exploring Marksans Pharma. We've dug into their financials, their strategic moves, their approach to risk. It's clear they're not just sitting still.
They're actively shaping their future.
They're a company that's clearly not afraid to make bold decisions.
Whether it's expanding into new markets or investing heavily in R&D.
It'll be interesting to see how those bets play out.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes this industry so fascinating.
It is.
It's constantly in motion.
Driven by innovation, competition.
The ever-present need for new and better treatments.
It's an industry with a profound impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. We're talking about health, well-being, even life expectancy. It's not just about profits and losses. It's about making a real difference in the world.
Couldn't agree more. Something we should all keep in mind as we evaluate these companies and their performance. It's not just about the numbers. It's about the impact they're having on society.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but as always, there's more to explore. We encourage you to continue researching, asking questions, and forming your own opinions about Marksans Pharma and the pharmaceutical industry.
And don't forget to share your thoughts with us. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and engage in meaningful conversations about these important topics.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights,
And most importantly,
that you've been inspired to keep learning and exploring.
the fascinating world of pharmaceuticals.
Until next time.
Stay curious.